ask you something. Why is it so difficult to simply slow down? Even when we finally have a few quiet minutes to ourselves, many of us don't actually rest. Instead, we move on to the next task. We check our phones, scroll through social media, answer one more email, look at tomorrow's calendar, or mentally rehearse everything that's waiting for us. Our bodies have stopped moving, but our minds are still running. Somewhere along the way, many of us became so accustomed to constant movement that stillness began to feel unfamiliar. Today, I want to talk about why we struggle to slow down, because I don't think that it's simply that we're busy. What I think is that we've forgotten what it feels like to simply be. I don't know exactly when it happened, but somewhere along the way, being busy became something many of us were proud of. When someone asked how we were doing, our answer became busy, almost as if busy meant we were accomplishing something important. We celebrate productivity. We admire people who seem to do it all. We praise ourselves for checking everything off the list. Little by little, being busy stops becoming something we do and start becoming part of how we see ourselves. Sometimes we even feel guilty if we aren't doing something. Have you ever found yourself sitting down to rest only to think, I should probably get up and do one more thing, even when no one else is asking anything from us? Your own mind keeps adding to the list. The truth is, there will probably always be something else that needs your attention. Another load of laundry, another email, another errand, another responsibility. The list rarely disappears. If we're waiting until everything is finished before we slow down, we may be waiting for a very long time. If we're standing in line, we're looking at our phone. We've become so accustomed to filling every quiet moment that silence almost feels empty. But what if those quiet moments were never meant to be filled? What if they were invitations? Invitations to notice how we're really feeling. Invitations to breathe, to check in with ourselves. Sometimes we don't need more information. We need more space. Space to think, to pray, to reflect, to simply exist for a few minutes without feeling like we have to accomplish something. Those quiet moments may seem significant, but they often become the moments where we hear ourselves most clearly. One of the easiest ways to avoid slowing down today is by reaching for our phones. Have you ever picked up your phone just to check one notification and 20 minutes later you're still scrolling? You weren't really looking for anything in particular, but somehow your mind convinced you to keep going. Social media gives us an endless stream of information, entertainment, and distraction. The moment we begin to feel bored, uncomfortable, or restless, we instinctively reach for someone to occupy our attention. The interesting thing is that most of us don't even realize we're doing it anymore. It's become automatic. We woke up and we check our phones. We wake up, and we check our phones. We stand in line and we check our phones. We sit in the waiting room and we check our phones. We even reach for them during the few quiet moments we have before going to bed. The problem isn't that technology is bad. The problem is that we rarely allow ourselves to simply be. Every spare moment becomes another opportunity to consume instead of connect with ourselves. Sometimes what we're really searching for isn't another video or another post. Sometimes we're searching for relief. We're searching for comfort. We're searching for a way to quiet our minds, even if it's only for a few minutes. But endless scrolling rarely leaves us feeling refreshed. More often than not, we put our phones down feeling just as mentally tired as we did before we picked them up. I wonder if one of the reasons we struggle to slow down is because silence can feel unfamiliar. When everything around us becomes quiet, there's nothing left to distract us from our own thoughts. That's where the worries, that is when the worries we've been avoiding begin to surface. That's where grief reminds us it's still there. That's where disappointment, loneliness, uncertainty, or unanswered questions quietly wait for our attention. Silence has a way of revealing what's happening beneath the surface. And while that can feel uncomfortable, it can also be incredibly healing. We often think peace comes from escaping our thoughts, but sometimes peace comes from finally allowing ourselves to acknowledge them. It isn't easy. In fact, it may feel uncomfortable at first, but avoiding silence doesn't make those feelings disappear. It simply postpones the moment we'll eventually need to face them. The truth is, some of the most important conversations you'll ever have won't be with someone else. They'll be with the quiet conversations you have with yourself. The ones where you're finally honest about how you're feeling, what you've been carrying, and what you need. Why does slowing down feels uncomfortable at first? If you've ever tried to slow down and found yourself feeling restless, distracted, or even a little anxious, I want you to know that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It simply means you're doing something that's unfamiliar. We've spent so much of our lives moving from one responsibility to the next that our minds have become conditioned to constant activity. Learning to slow down is a little like walking into a quiet room after standing in a noisy crowd. At first, the silence almost feels strange. You notice every little sound. You wonder if something is missing. But if you stay there long enough, your mind begins to settle. Your breathing slows. Your shoulders relax. The quiet that once felt uncomfortable begins to feel comforting. Creating a slower life doesn't happen overnight. It's something we practice, one small moment at a time, one intentional pause at a time. And over time, those small pauses begin to change us in ways we never expected. If you've been listening to this conversation and thinking, that sounds wonderful, but my life is too busy, I want you to know that I'm not asking you to completely change your schedule tomorrow. Creating space doesn't always require more time. Sometimes it simply requires more intention. It might be taking 3 slow, deep breaths before getting out of your car after work. It might be sitting in silence for 5 minutes before everyone else wakes up. It might be making your morning coffee without immediately picking up your phone. It might even be taking a short walk around your neighborhood without listening to anything at all. Or maybe it's spending a few quiet minutes writing in your journal before the day begins. These moments may seem small, but they remind us that we're allowed to exist without constantly producing something. They remind us that our worth isn't measured by how much we accomplish before the day is over. The goal isn't to create a perfect routine. The goal is simply to make a little room for yourself, because every small moment of stillness is a reminder that you matter too. If there's one thing I hope you take away from today's conversation, it's this. Slowing down isn't something you have to earn. It isn't a reward you receive after everything is finished. It's a gift you can choose to give yourself today. There will always be another email to answer, another room to clean, responsibilities waiting for your attention, but there will never be another you. You deserve moments where you're not rushing to the next thing. You need moments where your mind can breathe. You deserve moments where you can simply be. So this week, instead of asking yourself, how much can I get done today? Maybe ask yourself, how can I make just a little more space for myself today? You don't have to change your whole life overnight. Just begin with one quiet moment, one intentional pause, one deep breath. Because sometimes that's where healing begins. If today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love for you to become part of our community here at A Space for Her. Every week, we have honest conversation about the things many women carry, but don't always talk about. If that's something your heart needs right now, I hope you'll subscribe and join me for our next conversation. Next week, we're going to talk about something I think so many women have experienced. Why we abandon journals. If you've ever bought a beautiful journal, written in it for a few days, and then quietly put it to the side, I hope you'll join me. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. Take a moment to pause. And remember, you matter too.